Good now, revolutionaries, and welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show.
The Rise Up Morning Show.
Today is Thursday, April 3rd, and the big talk of the town, of course, is tariffs. Tariffs. Talking about tariffs. If you've got a question related to tariffs, to economic, financial, crypto, or even just trading card markets, this is the place for it. We're happy to share helpful Web3 news, commentary, and answers to your crypto questions. A little later in the hour, we're going to be joined by our friend Gerard, 0xGeebz from Wave Digital Assets, an early stage venture capitalist who can give you a lot of perspective on the difference between what you get to buy, what they get to buy, and how this whole market thing might shape out for us. So, guys, where do we want to start today? Do we need to give a little headline intro for the people who might have slept through the news yesterday?
I think so.
Sure. Yeah, we can do that. So only like a small thing happened, just like the global world order of supply chains, trade relationships, and geopolitical financial relationships drastically changed yesterday. I mean, that's it. That's the only thing. It's just like, the whole world order got flipped on its head. So, nothing really to pay attention to. It won't affect markets, won't affect economies. It's not going to affect what you pay for at the in the supermarket. It's not going to affect the stuff you buy at Amazon. It's not going to affect it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. No. But
Single tier
anyway,
pulls down my
single tier.
cheek.
So what happened, and I'm going to give the headline first because the headline is not reality. The headline is that the Trump administration increased tariffs by 50% of what the other countries have tariffed against the United States, using a lot of these air quotes, because that's not actually what happened. What actually happened is the super nice, friendly tariff that Trump called, that he placed against all these countries, is really, really not friendly at all, because it's not based off of the total amount of tariffs that other countries have on the US. Great example here. You can go look up on his sheet he had, claimed that South Korea had a 50% tariff against the United States. So therefore, they have been hit with a 25% tariff across the board. That seems to make sense when you say that, but when you actually look at what South Korea tariffs the United States, there is a large tariff. And Alex and I were talking about this and Evan before. There are a lot of trade agreements against the United States that are not fair. And South Korea has one tariff that is 54% tariff against U.S. agricultural goods. But that's just one set of goods. They do not have a 50% tariff against all U.S. goods. Just go look it up. They have nowhere near a 50% tariff against all. It's nowhere close to that. And you can do that for every single country. And you can do the math of how the Trump administration got to the tariffs that they claimed other countries have. And what they did is it was a very, very simple math. It had nothing to do with tariffs and has everything to do with trade deficit. And what they did is they took the amount of goods that the United States exports to every country, and they divided it by the amount that we import from that country, which gets you something like, if you do that with China, you can see that China would have a tariff against the United States of 67%. They do not have that. That is not a fucking thing. And so that is how the Trump administration came up with these tariff rates of other countries on the US, divided that in half. And ultimately, the United States now is tariffing the world way more across the board than the world is to us. Now, there are certain goods where other countries are still tariffing the United States more. There are some examples of like over 100% for certain things, right? I'm not here to say that there are not examples of there being unfair trade practices against the United States. But to do this across all goods is batshit fucking crazy. If your goal is to create fair trade deals, but that's not Trump's main goal. As I have said, Trump's main goal is to get lower interest rates from the Fed and lower interest rates on bonds, because the United States has a spending problem and Trump wants to spend a bunch of money. It's part of his plan. And you can spend a lot of money cheaply if rates are low. How do you get rates low? You tank the economy so that the Fed has to lower rates to apply pressure. And by tanking the economy, you have people buy bonds. If people buy bonds, rates on bonds come down. And bonds are one of the best ways for the United States government to raise money. That's why all of this is happening.
That's it.
Anyway,
that's it.
yeah,
That's
so,
the answer.
Guys,
but that's not the full
don't-
story that we've got the
And
controversy
guys,
on.
you know, it's totally fine because like companies can just build new manufacturing plants in the United States in like a couple hours. So it's gonna be okay.
It's like I think the last estimate I saw was to move manufacturing plants for a major automaker. It's like 2 or 3 weeks to completely port all operations over. So
It's gonna be it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, no, honestly,
fine.
genuinely, there have been some estimates. Actually, an interesting one was Volvo because they built a plant in South Carolina. I don't remember what year it opened. It was relatively recently. I'd have to look that up. Fact check myself.
I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was relatively recently.
This is like big news because it's a big manufacturing facility.
But I mean, just it's an interesting read to how long that took and what it took to make it happen. And it's not like a thing that you can just do. And I was curious too, because I started to get into it and I figured you would probably know more than me, but just as you blanket all sorts of things arbitrarily, mostly like, cause it seems like the goal here is shock and awe, you know, like wave the big stick, scare people with numbers. All of this was done under emergency declaration. So Congress can literally just undo it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
100%.
for example, they just did with Canada yesterday.
Yeah, I thought I saw that, but I kind of was swept up in the tariff news.
Yeah, a small handful of Republicans broke rank to vote to get rid of those, which, just to be clear, none of these are being done through like traditional means. This is all emergency declaration stuff, which is wild. Lots of archaic policies being brought up. I was watching Kyla Scanlon's analysis of these. If you guys don't follow Kyla, she's brilliant. But basically it was just like the last time this happened and the time before that. It's been about every 100 years for the past now 300 years. So this is the third installment of kind of like a blanket overarching tariff against all sorts of things. It was like, what, 1835 and then 1920, somewhere around that. And it was like every single time it caused a depression, but this time it's going to be different.
Yes. Yeah, because we stopped the overall tariff strategy. It was FDR. It was FDR during the Great Depression.
There's just there's no room for the nuance in any of this.
Well, the thing is there's an economic term for this. It's the something spiral. It has to do with tariffs because tariffs breed reciprocal tariffs, which breed reciprocal tariffs, which breed reciprocal tariffs, which breed reciprocal tariffs, which breed reciprocal tariffs. And it creates this, obviously, a spiral of increasing the cost of goods, as well as increasing deflation and inflation on the side. Because one other thing about tariffs is that the importer, so the United States, we put a tariff on somebody. We are importing the good. It is inflationary. It is increasing the cost of the good. But it is deflationary on the country that is exporting it. So that spiral also accelerates global inflation in certain countries and global deflation in other countries. And deflation is also a very scary thing. In fact, it's worse than inflation. You want some inflation for fiat currencies. I know it sounds weird. This is crypto. It's weird to say we want some inflation. But you want some inflation in your fiat currency. You do not want deflation because then people go, oh, well, I can buy this thing for cheaper later. And then they just stop spending money. And then companies stop making money, which means companies go through layoffs and companies go through bankruptcies, and you have a very large recession that way as well. Deflation is worse.
You want some inflation in crypto too. If any token is meant to be used or utilitarian in any capacity, I hate to break it to you, but you need new versions of it coming into circulation.
But we fractionalize.
No, don't fucking.
I mean, I don't want inflation for Bitcoin, but that's a very, it's not a.
That's a store of value.
Yeah,
that's a coin, not a token.
You're wearing your.
Well, there are lots of other coins, not tokens, too. But
yes,
Ethereum as a coin, I think it's important, should be deflationary. Inflationary, excuse me. I struggle with this one.
Evan. It's okay. I can't make fun of you because the one that I mess up every single time is custodial and non-custodial.
Yeah.
I think I'll go to my grave not being 100% sure which one.
100% sure on that.
It just doesn't make any sense.
But anyway, so yeah, tariffs. Happy to
Yeah,
take questions.
so there's this potential uncertainty spiral, and there's a lot of cascading effects. And Alex, I know I rugged you, but are you taking us to the GPT thing? Because I can't believe we've gone this long without touching.
I do want to just mention one other thing.
Please.
We are now in a position where we are expecting reciprocal tariffs from the UK, and in particular, a whole list of Asian countries, because Asian countries in particular got slammed. I mean, we're talking like 50%, like 70%, 60% tariffs. You know, massive, gigantic, sweeping tariffs
on Taiwan. It's
30 plus on Taiwan. What was the biggest one I had here?
54% on
well, it's like
China.
46% against Vietnam. They make a whole bunch of shirts and stuff, you know, goods. 49% against Cambodia. They're a big exporter as well. 44% against Sri Lanka. They're not huge, but, you know, just another example of like Asian countries in particular getting like really hit. You're going to see a lot of Asian countries coming back with retaliatory tariffs, and you're going to see Asian markets start to go down. You're going to see U.S. market go down more as these retaliatory, again, that spiral. Tariffs breed tariffs, which breed tariffs, which breed tariffs, which breed tariffs.
And I mean, if you're Xi Jinping right now, you are just, you're probably absolutely thrilled that the world is looking at Trump and seeing chaos, uncertainty, fear, and then they turn their heads and they look at you and they see free trade, cooperation, some stability. Like, I don't know.
No, not quite.
You don't think so?
No,
what about that?
China's...
What about that significant? There was a headline. I don't even remember what he did. Maybe you can fill me in. There was a big like press tour he did where he sat down with a number of like I don't know, corporate leaders. Some of them from Europe, some of them from the United States. I don't remember who it was, but this is just last week, and I feel like all the headlines I see, that's the comparison people make, is you get Xi, who's this, at least recently, promoter of cooperation vis-a-vis Donald Trump.
Yeah. No, he's definitely got an angle for that. But the thing is this could spell a lot of problems for Chinese markets also. Now, they are also going to hit us with reciprocal tariffs as well. Along with South Korea and Japan in a rare instance of collaboration. But the thing is the Chinese economy has really been wobbly. They've been pumping a ton of money into it, and it has been helping.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But they're kind of hanging on by a thread. They've just
I'm not talking about
their
economic. I'm not talking about the strength of their economy so much as I'm talking about the strength of the way they are perceived and the way they are positioned to benefit. Like the fact that they're going to have a coalition, and Xi Jinping will probably be, you know, the perceived figurehead leader of that. China will be the strength for those countries that will have reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah,
and also
there's
other
an opportunity
nations.
there for sure.
I just think they have such. I don't know. I think it's a real tipping point moment. It's been for a long time. You know, they've had
the other thing too. Oh wait, did you see this too? And then Alex will pass it off to you. But so, you know, obviously we've been threatening about pulling out of NATO, right? And now with the tariffs as well, and the European Union is like, okay, well we'll rearm ourselves. And the United States is like, great, that's awesome. And they're like, yeah, but we'll buy our weapons and stuff from our own European like weapons manufacturers. And the United States is like, no. No, don't do that. Buy still from us because we're the largest manufacturer of weapons and exporter in the world by a wide margin. It's one of the reasons why we still have manufacturing jobs. It's because of weapon manufacturing. And now the European Union's like, well, we'll just like make and buy our own because like, fuck you guys.
Pretty much.
Yeah. That's the thing, but tariffs can be a good tool. They can be a good tool, but like, communicated like, hey, we're going to do this in the long term, like a year or two out, we're going to do this thing. Be very select with various industries, very select with various countries to negotiate certain things where there are, trade imbalances. So it is a good tool. But this kind of sweeping tool is a really big hammer that when the hammer comes down, also very much so affects your relationships with your allies. And if you piss off people, it doesn't matter if like, you may have the better deal. They're like, I'm not going to do business with you. Like, right? you're going to lose some business relationships if this lasts for an extended period of time. Hopefully Congress can just come in, because they'll be worried about every one of them being voted out of office when people go and try to buy a car that's 30% more expensive than it was the day before. Because Congress can, as we said, Congress can overrule all of these tariffs by Trump. Anyway, Alex, let's talk about this ChatGPT news that we're seeing.
Well, and just to respond to your final point there, like these can be a tool. Yeah, a sledgehammer is a tool.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that it's the right tool for every job. And I keep saying, and it's getting worse, the death of nuance is an epidemic that is going to lead to continued catastrophic fallout. The inability to recognize when not everything is as simple as you think it is just because someone crammed a headline about it onto a bumper sticker and made it sound legit. I can't begin to describe how much damage is being done to all sorts of things because of oversimplified thinking by people who don't truly understand what it is that they're working on or talking about or dealing with or trying to solve. And we are consistently moving farther and farther away as a people from the ability to admit that we're not an expert in everything. It's being looked at as weak to outsource thinking to someone smarter than you. It used to be a classic adage and a timeless anecdote in the world of leadership and business and government, of leadership of any capacity, to surround yourself by people who are smarter than you and empower them to work on their specific niches. And so far, in the past how many years, all we've been doing is demonizing people with specific intelligence because we've overly politicized every single piece of everything everyone does. We have hyper divided everyone on all things just by making them feel as if they're being personally attacked for everything. The number of people who feel personally attacked that someone has an opposing view on tariff policy, it should prove to you how fucking brain dead everyone is right now about all of this stuff and exclusively looking at everything through a hyper politicized lens. And that is because a very small group of extremely wealthy and powerful people have a very vested interest in everyone hating each other and not realizing that it's them fucking all of us over collectively.
You had like 3 dings. There's like 3 points in this.
Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
was with you.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to stop.
This is why we void scream about DeFi all the time, because if you want to opt out of this garbage, decentralizing pieces of your life is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Removing removing your business from someone's hand is, I was just talking the other day about Amazon, right? How many things do we get from Amazon? We get tons of stuff from Amazon. I have a good friend of mine whose fiance used to work for Amazon. She did it for 2 weeks. She was crying every night and then had to leave. And her job was literally make life hard for small businesses so we can steal their inventory more effectively.
Ooh.
That was her job description. And Amazon is not unique. There's tons of examples of this. I mean, this is why we void scream about DeFi all the time, because again, opt out, decentralized stuff. That's why this industry matters. And what's happening to it right now? People have realized what an effective tool cryptocurrencies can be for grifting from more people than you would have ever been able to get money away from before, because the allure of getting rich quick is very strong and very tempting. And we see examples of it happening all the time. So of course you're going to get sucked into it. And if people effective at obfuscating their involvement are the ones pulling the strings and getting you to just give them money, all you're doing is being milked in a different direction. And the entire time that this is ramping up, we're consistently demonizing intelligence, education. We're defunding it actively. We are shifting things around to reset the power balance more heavily in favor of ultra wealthy and power hungry corporations. Like it's fucking disgusting. And yet here we are arguing with each other. Like 2 people who live on my fucking street that voted for different people think that the problem is their neighbor. Meanwhile, there's a gigantic construction company that's about to bulldoze all of the woods next to us and replace it with heavy industrial.
Yeah.
And yet my neighbor still thinks that I am his enemy because we voted differently.
Sure. And I bet a lot of them get their groceries at Walmart.
A lot of them get their groceries at, well, fucking spoiler alert, grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, I work on Tybee. It's a very small little island. Every business there is local. There's no chains. I was talking to a buddy of mine that owns the little smoothie bar stand, and he was like, I genuinely don't know. We're just losing money right now because if I raise my prices to cover the rising cost of fruit, then everything is going to go up by about half. And he's like, so I guess we'll just eat the loss on strawberries and hope it gets better. And it you know,
Yeah.
and it's just one tiny example of a gajillion different areas. So like, yeah, Will, you're 100% right. Tariffs can be used effectively as a tool, and they have been forever. They have been consistently. I mean, the Biden administration oversaw lots of tariffs before that. As you pointed out, they're all over the world. They're levied against us. We're levying them against other people. But there is sense to it. Someone like reasoned it out. People sat down with panels of economists and tried to conceptualize this stuff. But it's really easy to demonize those people because shit's not been great. So sure, you can swing in with a baseball bat and say like, well, all I'm going to do is break down all these things that aren't working. And that sounds great because a lot of stuff wasn't working. You know, there was a lot of issues. Look at the Biden administration is the perfect example of why you can demonize this stuff and they boned messaging so hard it wasn't even funny. On paper, economic numbers looked great. None of that mattered because day to day, a whole bunch of people didn't get to experience the good pumping part of the economy because they don't get to participate. They're not allowed to participate in it. They're just watching from the sidelines. Someone else do really well, and that really well guy tell you, no, dude, look at the numbers. It's right here. It's doing great. What's wrong with you? Work harder. Start a business or some shit. You know, so
invest. I'm paycheck to paycheck. Invest. I can't.
Yeah, you're paycheck to
Meanwhile-
paycheck, and you're overspending everywhere because you have to. Because you're siloed into these channels of spending your money. You can scream about it forever. It's
Walmart, Amazon, McDonald's,
everywhere.
You get your you get your car from the same manufacturer as your neighbor. You buy a house. You live in a house alone with your family. Everybody's got to have one, don't you know? Which means you got to have a mortgage, which means you got to have a bank. Have you had a good banking relationship? If not, we've got 12 more on the street, but that's it, just 12. Don't call these guys. They're not insured. You know
Don't do that.
It's not a judgment call against anybody who likes McDonald's or likes Walmart or likes Amazon. I love them. They're great. They're so convenient. But wouldn't it be great if instead of enriching Jeff Bezos with, all of our collective hunger, we could support each other, support communities, those kind of things. We're preaching to the choir here. Now, listen, I really do want you to highlight this GPT thing because I cannot believe that we're going to talk about
First of all, I
terrorists and
think
let
that
it
was
skirt.
my
insane.
favorite Alex Popovic rant. I think if I was dinging, I would have been dinging left and right. I think
He
you got
would've
like
been-
6 or 7 points right there.
Clip it.
It's unfortunately we're
agree.
not
It
actually
was a
playing
great
the
rant.
game, so you'll never win.
That was what I was thinking. I am not going to clip it. You both have had really good, this has been a good week of, 3-minute-ish responses. We're getting solid. So I'll clip it later.
I just want to get louder about this kind of stuff because it's the most frustrating thing that we all encounter every single day are two people who, by all accounts, should be on the same side, but have been expertly over decades manipulated into believing that their neighbor is the problem.
That's right.
Yeah.
The GPT thing is wild. So the disclaimer, because Will, like we talked about beforehand, it is true. This is not confirmed. But I would encourage you to take a look at it because it's wild. Let me see if I can find a couple of the tweets. Okay, thank you.
I just did a search
I'll
for
share
it
my
generally.
screen for TikTok.
Well, and TikTok, I'm so sorry too, because you're just going to see a lot of text and it's going to be small. But I just went to Twitter and
They can
searched
at least see the
tariffs
source.
GPT so that you can see how many people are reporting on this.
And to just Evan, to add a little bit of credibility to it, I would also, can you pull up, what the hell is this? The deputy press secretary. Like rather than looking at a pundit, like Destiny's analysis of this, I would rather just go straight to the source. Deputy press secretary himself wrote one of these tweets.
Okay, do you know where they responded?
Yeah, it was to the big one. I sent you the link from
in the Discord.
You're talking about Caroline,
James
what's her name?
No. She's the press secretary. Her assistant. Her deputy.
Okay, hold tight.
Stand by.
Anyway, tell him the story and I'll find it.
So it's I think it's off of the James Surowiecki analysis. Who's the one who broke the big. Yeah. So essentially, what this is,
got it,
is the suspicion and the accusation, basically, that government officials unable to craft this policy themselves because they fired everyone who works on this kind of stuff is just using AI to generate policy based on specific inputs. And there have been a series of experiments being run all over the place wherein people are inputting basic information and asking it to come up with a plan, and they're getting near word for word examples of things in executive orders, things on boards, things on speeches, press secretary talking points, stuff like that. And then questions like this: how on earth did a Treasury secretary sign off on this? Like things that are just brazenly obvious. You know, like Will pointed out, every single one of the numbers on that board can be reached very simply with a very simple math problem.
Alex, I'm on James Surowiecki's tweet, but
it's going to be through the quotes. It's one of the quotes.
Oh, one
Let
of
me
the
get the
quotes
guy's
of his tweet.
Hang on, because I don't.
If I
remember his
try,
name. He's a relatively unimportant individual.
wow, dude, he's probably got a kid and a family. His mom thinks he's somebody. That's you just got done saying about
Someone's
neighbors
mom's
and problems.
doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be a good person. His name is Kush Desai.
Well, Linda's existence does.
Linda's special. Do you want the?
Yeah,
Here, I'll
do.
put the
Sorry, I
here's
was
his
just
name.
laughing at some of the comments. Excellent commentary this morning. Are you posting something to me?
It's in the private chat. That's the guy's name. If you look up recent posts by him, it's probably one of his more recent ones. He quote tweeted James's initial write up there.
Okay. Let me see. Here it comes. So, is he Kush Desai?
Yes.
Wonder if he's into decentralized science.
Aha! Ding.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I sure don't got him. Hold tight. You
Do you guys
keep
think
talking
it'll be an
about it.
alt
Keep
season?
talking about it.
No.
Huh?
Not in
No,
the.
it's
Just
no.
another alt season question. Not in the way that anyone is conditioned to believe that alt season will work.
Nah, just look at Bitcoin dominance. The shit's flying.
What is it at?
Got to be over 63. I'm calling.
Let
Is
me
it
hang on a
64?
second. I'm
look at
holding my phone in an odd way, and
Will, just grow another arm.
I'm trying. It's at 63%, and it's looking like it's set to climb up to 64% quite easily.
Woof.
Alex, are these the tweets you are looking for? Let's see. We've got retweets of James Surowiecki. No, we literally calculated
Yes.
tariffs and non-tariffs.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, here we go.
That's it right there. Tell me that everything on that white screenshot right there was not written by AI.
Yeah, and I what makes it more compelling is that when you search for it, on the other side, there are a lot of screenshots of people asking AI
Recreating it exactly.
and
Yeah.
recreating it, and many of these tweets attest to recreating it with Grok, with Gemini, with
Claude,
whatever.
Perplexity, all of them.
Yeah, and it's
Damn.
shocking how similar they are. And I'm a big fan of using GPT to give me a good answer for something and then
I use it
refine
every day.
But it looks
I don't know that
like
I would
they
be
more or
ballsy
less
enough
copy
to
pasted.
generate it and then put it on official letter.
And then not edit it at all.
Policy.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's
Yeah,
rough.
not confirmed, but read that and tell me it's not AI.
That
Every high
is
school
not
teacher
ideal,
thought
as we have it on our side.
Not ideal.
Not ideal.
Yeah, no, I would just give him a straight up.
that. Okay, so William Judd in the chat asks a great relevant question. What is the point of all of this? What are we looking at? So my bumper sticker, and then Will, I would defer to you for like the broader implications of all of this. But of course, in general, cryptocurrency, which is the focus of this show, Web3, the entire blockchain industry, follows the stock market very closely. There have been
Unfortunately.
rumblings and whispers of things decoupling. We've seen some beginnings of that, the little bits of the facade starting to chip and crack. Bitcoin is a great example. Solana, Ethereum have been outliers before, even if they're not right at this present moment. So unfortunately, everything that goes into influencing stock market movements also bears relevance to the Web3 industry. And that is why this kind of stuff gets covered. And of course, this is just the talk of the town because it just happened yesterday. It's bonkers, and it will have lasting implications and ramifications for the broader market that all of us are going to have to figure out a way to navigate. I'm very excited to hear from the venture capital perspective from Gerard just about this, because my biggest question for him is like, I feel like the landscape of how you have to navigate this from an investor standpoint has completely changed. And I am so curious to hear, like, on the VC side, what have they had to do, or what are they doing to re-rack and reprioritize the things that get attention, the things that get VC dollars, just because you can't just like look at Nick Johnson in the chat was pointing out, Pendle, good fundamentals. He's interested in it now. And that was one I'm not super familiar with, but
They just got listed to Coinbase.
gotcha. Okay. So in that sense, can't just look at raw fundamentals and good utility and try to analyze a problem being solved and then just put money there, because, the game is different right now. So I don't know, Will, as you look at this, like, this is more of your wheelhouse, but is that more or less it? Would you add anything to that?
I mean, I'll expand on the game has changed now and on what about the game has changed. If from a TA standpoint, from a macro standpoint, from a TA standpoint, always look at a chart the first time on a long-term time frame. With Bitcoin, the 1 month, the 3 month, do the same thing with the stock market. And if you pull up various indicators like your stochastic RSI, your MACD, your RSI, the stock market, because Bitcoin follows the stock market for the most part, as we mentioned, was just in very overextended period for a very long time. And you could say this is a natural correction, but it's not natural, it's fabricated, right? It's being forced to happen right now. And so
correction.
Yeah, and so from a technical analysis standpoint, on those long-term time frames, it's like, yeah, it looks like we're due for a long-term correction. The macro side is what's causing that to happen right now. And that's where the game has changed, air quotes. But a lot of things are the same. So let me talk about what's the same. The same thing in the crypto space from a trading and investing standpoint is if Bitcoin is going down, altcoins go down harder. If Bitcoin goes up, altcoins typically, and I'm talking with broad swaths there, this is like 90 to 95% of the time of what happens. There are exceptions. And if Bitcoin goes up, altcoins go up harder. Bitcoin's tied to the stock market, as it has been most of the time. I think it has a correlation of something like 80% or 85%, something like that. So if the stock market goes down, Bitcoin goes down, altcoins go down harder. Okay. So those rules have not changed at all. Those rules are exactly the same. In that sense, the game is entirely the same. But what is changing is the global structure of supply chains, potentially. Right? We have to see what's going to happen. But global trade is being entirely shaken up. I also work and consult for some of the largest supply chain organizations in the world. They have already started firing people. They have already stopped spending money. They have already limited their budgets that they have available to spend on investments from a manufacturing physical asset to technology. Okay? That will get worse the more their stocks begin to fall. Those stock prices will begin to fall because the supply chains that they have invested billions to globally, trillions of dollars in, are now no longer the best routes for supply chain, from sourcing to processing to the manufacturing of the actual goods to transportation across all those routes to retailer from CPG company to their distribution centers, their warehouses, to retailers, to the end product consumer. That is your complete and total supply chain. All of those routes are now incredibly expensive because of tariffs, and your new optimal routes are in other places. It takes a really long time to restructure that. It takes a really large amount of money to be able to restructure that. In that time period, you won't have the most optimal profit margins as you could possibly have, as if you could just snap your fingers and have that. And as a result, your company value will go down. The price of goods will remain expensive for as long as these tariffs last, right? And there won't be a lot of relief coming for end consumers. So that is what has changed. We are now in a scenario, profit margins for companies will go down, or at least revenue will. Profit margins might stay the same because they'll pass the costs on to consumers.
Sure.
But consumers will be buying less, so their revenue will go down. Expenses will be up because of tariffs, because tariffs are just a tax on the person putting in the tariff. So it's just a tax on the United States. And you're creating a scenario now where companies' valuations go down. They then fire people. People have less jobs.
Less money.
They have less money to spend, and you have an economic downturn. And so that's what's changed. But again, like I said, and I'll put a little bonus, a lot of the things are still the same. Stocks go down, Bitcoin goes down harder, altcoins go down the most. And the other thing too is long-term time frames. Things were overextended for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
So this is natural.
Got it.
I think being able to bury manipulation into what is supposed to feel natural based on how things have been going just makes it easier to hide.
Sure, or even, easier for the next person to justify doing the same kind of thing. I think you talked about the division earlier, Alex. My point is just that, we get so caught up in what your guy did, what my guy did. And the truth is, whoever's in office, because they have money as a tool, they will probably print more of it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's
okay.
It's tough. It's sad to watch. It really truly is, because we've just so expertly manipulated, like I said, what is the definition of like strength and weakness, to just make people believe that, hey, admitting that you were wrong or admitting that you've learned or grown in any direction from either side is a sign of weakness. Don't do it. Never admit defeat. And so we have just a bunch of like ignorant, arrogant individuals burying their heads in the sand.
Isn't that from a kids movie from when we were kids? Never admit defeat, never surrender. Am I thinking of like G.I. Joe or something?
No, there was a quote.
Never
like
give
that
up,
from,
never surrender. I feel like it's like Buzz Lightyear or something.
Movies, but yeah.
Someone help me out. I have no idea.
Anyway, I gotta get a fact check. Really quickly, let me reset this and give us a piece of good news. Before our guest gets here, we've got Gerard 0xGeebz, early stage venture capitalist, coming to answer some of your questions about what that must be like to write somebody's first check and what the differences are between them being early stage venture investors and you and me, meaning people who only get to buy after something is listed publicly, and how you can start thinking about your investments with your venture hat on. He is going to join us in just a couple minutes, but first we got to talk about the stable bill. The stable, S-T-A-B-L-E, I forget what the acronym stands for, stablecoin legislation sailed through the Finance Committee. I say sailed through. There were hours of amendments made, 13 hours yesterday. You could stream it on C-SPAN or something else, I'm sure. But it was a really strong bipartisan effort led by Congressman French Hill. Shout out. We'd love to have you on the show, Rep Hill. And now that it's left the Finance Committee, this stable bill is going to the House, then to the Senate. They're going to see if they can't put this bad boy into legislation and get us some of that stablecoin law that they promised. This is a real cool thing, a reason for people in our industry to celebrate, and anybody who's a fan of the dollar to say yay. So congratulations, Congress people. Guys, do you have any thoughts on the passing of this bill in the Finance Committee?
Just to say, this is such a good example of something that we should be able to collectively agree is a good thing to work on. If we are all, and when I say we, I do mean people in the United States, because of course I know we have a tremendously international audience. So for this sentence, I'm talking about the US. The people divided.
The people divided.
Strengthening your currency by just reinforcing the way that it's built and the way that it can get used and who can use it and who has access to it and what kind of access people have to it is a good thing. Of course, the thing we should be concerned about is the corporate fingers working their way into the stablecoin industry, because, next thing you know, everyone's going to want to drop a stablecoin and there's going to be all sorts of questionable backing methods. And
Who
Yeah,
were talking to you
or
the
it's
other day
just,
about that?
or it's just the United States government being like, all right, guys, anybody can open up a stable coin, but you gotta buy all those bonds. Come on, buy my bonds. You can have as many stable coins as you want. Just
Come on.
fucking
Who-
buy my bonds.
Who are we
All I
talking
know
to?
is- USDC to $2.
Yeah, exactly. No, where's my button?
Do not
And
quote
this
me.
is
You
gross
son of a bitch.
misrepresentation of the facts.
Oh, okay.
USDC to $2.
Well, and Will, you're the one who's always saying, and I think about it often when we talk about these kind of things, that a strong dollar is in the interest of the global empire. Like,
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
those
yeah.
stable coins out into the world, people.
Yeah. The
As
US
much as you
empire
can.
loves stable coins.
Yes, it does. I think of a Monopoly man sitting atop his pile of digital dollars. But seriously, who was it who said that to us? Was it a conversation
What?
I was having, or a
Who said what
conversation
to
we were
who
having?
said what?
Sorry, about banks issuing their own stablecoin. Oh, you know what it was? I had a conversation in office hours with Roby1, one of our friends, one of my longtime friends who happens to be a cryptocurrency user and investor. He invests in stocks and other things too. He's a sharp guy. And he was talking about why he did not think that banks would adopt their own stablecoins. He was talking about some of the costs, some of the benefits. Because on our show, we've talked a lot about, hey, you know, when stablecoins become something legal and easy to do, then probably everybody's going to want their own piece of the pie. My argument has always been they all have their own debit cards. They all have their own credit cards because you're moving money, and they want you to do it with their tool so they can take a cut, whoever they are.
And I mean, you want to talk about an interesting investment opportunity? Circle IPO.
Oh, yeah. That's
yeah.
huge.
Oh no, that'd be massive. Actually, I don't. Why haven't I thought about that? Why haven't I thought about that?
And Circle's making moves.
Circle
Big
is
time.
making
Alex,
moves.
Alex, I cannot possibly put into a correct context just how big of a freaking baseball bat sledgehammer of clarity you just struck my brain with. I'm just like,
You've been on chain for too long.
Why don't I own Circle stock? Oh.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh.
They just
Yeah.
a quick, for people's context, their net income last year was 156 million. Tether reported a profit of 13 billion, and Coinbase 2.6 billion. So Circle's net profit margin was nearly 5 times less than Coinbase's. But can you imagine if they go? I don't know. I think if they go public, the attention is going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
They just brought like a 200 or 300% increase. I was looking last night to Aptos chain of like USDC volume. They are going gangbusters everywhere, man.
I'd rather own Circle stock than MicroStrategy.
100%.
Me too.
Yeah.
You know, Evan, do you remember? We used to do some work with a company called Spatial. This is a real blast from the past. They were doing metaverse stuff, and basically they had started this like virtual workspace company during the early days of the pandemic, because obviously, and then basically what people were doing is hijacking their little corporate office rooms and like hanging NFT art on the walls, and they were like, what is this? And they like kind of hard pivoted to Web3, and Samsung gave them a shitload of money
It's like
to $50 million.
Yeah, and they raised that round. I think it was well over 100 million. It was
They got
well-funded.
a ton of money, and they were basically given an objective, like acquire users. You don't have to make any money, and they were hemorrhaging money every year just off the backs of these gigantic investors to build metaverse stuff. And this was one of the things that proved to me that the metaverse was dead, because Spatial gave it to everybody for free. You could build, and we did. We still have them. They're still there to this day.
It was really fun.
Huge, like a big gallery, museum kind of gallery type thing, hangout spaces, classrooms, individual houses, like all this kind of stuff. And anybody could just like pop into an Oculus or use their phone or whatever and just go take a stroll through these things. It was all free and no one ever used it. And I was like, if no one wants to use the free metaverse, why would anyone, pay a shitload of money to go into the worst one?
Well, because
Anyway.
Snoop Dogg's over there.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Snoop Dogg had a huge presence in the sandbox.
Oh my god.
And you know what? I spent some time in the sandbox. I did.
The Evan, the guys that own the smoothie place on Tybee.
Yeah.
They are, one of them is an old DJ and used to gamble in Decentraland casinos back in the day while he was mining Ethereum in his apartment. I was like, dude, that's so cool. But
cool.
My point, why did I bring up this weird ass tangent? Spatial's directive kind of reminds me of the way that USDC via Circle is operating right now, wherein the goal is to spread. The goal is not necessarily to make a ton of money, because I know every time I go to buy USDC, I'm not paying a fee. And they've got a deal through Coinbase. I'm getting it for free on Base, and I'm bridging it over here for a penny. If I buy it through MoonPay on Base, no fee. I actually got more than I bought. I bought, like, I think the last one was, a couple $100 of USDC, and I ended up with like, $2 or $3 extra based on, like, the fact that it was down 0.99999 whatever. But that was the thing that struck me. It was, it's so easy to get. You can get it fee free in a number of different places, and I'm just like, this thing's gonna. That's all they're doing right now is early spatial, acquire users, just be everywhere, get on every chain, in every protocol, have a yield option everywhere. That's one of the things that came up last night with David, was just this idea.
It's such a good strategy.
It is. If I have USDC and there are products that exist out there like Wormhole, where I can just be my single bag of USDC to all these different places to take advantage of different yield opportunities on different chains, all without having to really sacrifice that much, and all while being able to experiment with all these different things. Think about how siloed you are money-wise. This is one of those things I'm saying you get locked into in a bank. And if your bank's interest rate is shit, that sucks. Have fun closing your account, withdrawing everything, transferring it to another one, opening a new account, redoing all that kind of stuff, when you could just Wormhole, different blockchain, different yield protocol, boom, done. Better interest rate. Oh, this one's dropping, Wormhole, back somewhere else. Like, the velocity is just turned up to 11. And USDC to $2. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and not just that, but one
Oh
of
wait,
the
we
things,
need to make a shirt.
USDC to $2.
USDC to $2.
Can somebody?
I'd love to wear that at a crypto conference.
Honestly, that would be a killer shirt.
That'd be a killer shirt. It would.
USDC to $2. I absolutely love it.
I feel like I have to make that now.
Yeah.
And then I'm just gonna take like some screenshot of just like maybe Alex's like excited face right now, and like that's the back of it. It's just like.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys mean when you say you're bullish on stablecoins. That's what I'm talking about. All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of bullish, I am so excited to introduce our guest. Our friend Jeebz is finally here, and he is looking good on that beautiful background. I want to give him a quick introduction, but first, let me just say, brother, welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey guys,
Hello.
I'm pumped to be here. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Nice.
Can you hear
I
us
just
okay?
opened 100x long on USDC. I'm bullish.
Perfect.
If we got
Dude, you're about to
USDC
make
to
so much money.
dude,
gonna be great,
USDC to $2, baby. That's it. What is it? Who's got 101x leverage now?
Oh, that's Drift Protocol.
Drift.
Did you see this?
101.
They took
Oh,
100x
man.
leverage and turned it up 1, and that was
Dude,
their
it's
whole
just-
PR campaign.
That's
If
great.
they don't
Things
do
are
some
needed
sort
in this
of-
world.
Yeah,
I need
exactly.
some sort of Spinal Tap marketing.
Oh my god. I remember
slogan.
Rollbit used to do 1000x for a bit.
Yeah, we
Oh.
were just talking about that, I think, last night
Yep.
Oh my god.
with David from Aptos.
Yeah, right. In case you didn't get enough adrenaline in crypto already. So, all right, let me give you an introduction. We have Gerard, known as Jeebz on X. And I didn't even ask you how to say, is it Jeebz or is it Geebz? Because it's, a G.
It's Jeebz. Yeah.
Okay.
You nailed it.
If it's Geebz, I've got other
Whew.
questions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He is an early stage crypto VC. He's dabbled in internet capital markets and worn a lot of hats for some time here. He first started in crypto while he was in the consulting industry. He was helping to understand permission blockchains and has built products in the crypto space and invested for a little over 3 years. So we want to pick your brain about what it's like to invest before everybody else even hears about a project. We'd like to know some of the projects you've invested in, the differences in your mind between being somebody who gets that kind of deal flow and somebody probably like us who's watching social media or interacting with these companies at conferences and not hearing about them until later or getting to invest in them until they're public. But before that, I'd just love for you to fill in any cracks in the introduction and share a little more about yourself.
Yeah, Evan, you nailed it. And I just want to say, I've been listening to your guys' show all morning. I went back and listened to some shows. Evan and I met at ETH Denver randomly at this Uniswap event. And, the second you see Evan, you're just like, this guy has some swag. This guy, he's the man. And we had a good chat. We had some pastries, some coffee. And I was just really inspired by what you guys do. I think it's awesome that you guys have dedicated, a lot of time and effort to educating people about crypto. This stuff is not easy to wrap your head around. And just listening to some of the shows, you guys really break things down in such a clear and concise way. And so you're doing God's work. I just want to congratulate you guys.
Thanks, man.
And say thank you guys for what you're doing on a daily basis. But yeah, Evan, no, you nailed it, right? Got into crypto probably like 2014, 15. One of my bosses had told me about Bitcoin. Initially, I shrugged it off, read up on it, and it just clicked. I think most people have that like it clicks moment. Wow, this is incredible technology. Really incredible things can happen with this. And from there, I just sort of dedicated a lot of my time and effort toward it. And then, started angel investing in like 2021. And then I've been full-time venture investing for about 3 years now. So I'm pumped to just talk with you guys about this. Yeah.
What were some of the early experiences as an angel or an early stage investor? Do you remember some of the checks you wrote that either paid off or didn't, or any notable examples that you can talk about in a positive or negative direction?
Yeah, I would say I've made mistakes early on that I've learned from. And I think a lot of people in this space have. I think the biggest thing I've come down to is believing in the founder's vision. So a great idea with a bad founder is already a negative. And initially I didn't fully understand that. And so made some early investments, and the founders honestly just didn't pan out. They didn't have maybe the drive or the ability to follow through on that exact idea. So I think that was probably my biggest early mistake. On the positive side, some of the angel stuff, it's good founders, great ideas that I was able to invest in. So one example there is a company called IYK. They build embedded NFC chips, right? I think those guys are just awesome. And, they just continue to crush. And I think bridging the physical and digital world is going to be huge someday. And we're already starting to see that shake up a bit.
We love IYK.
Yeah, we do. Our friend Austin is the COO there now. I think he was employee number, I don't know, maybe 3.
Oh, incredible. Yeah. I mean, those guys, they crush it. They're great. So yeah, that's just like a great example of like great founder, great idea. And, they've been able to continually deliver and drive forward.
Well, and you had mentioned, oh, sorry, go ahead, Will.
I was just going to say, I bet there's like some kind of funny story. Maybe not funny because in this instance you would have lost money, but is there an instance of a company where like you invested and then just like it fell, maybe not even one you invested in, just something you heard of from like other angel investors that like fell apart for like the weirdest, craziest reason? I feel like there have to be some stories.
Yeah, of course, dude. This happens all the time. So early on, like when I first got into investing, you come in, you're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, you're really excited about it. And so there was one project where some friends, had convinced me, hey, you should go ahead and invest in this company. And I think we maybe even did it at the fund level. And the founder seemed great. He had all these wireframes that looked awesome. And he was building out, it was an NFT perps protocol. So you can go levered long on a specific project instead of actually going and buying the underlying. And at the time, this was like peak NFT mania. So the idea seemed great. The wireframes looked great. And I initially ignored all the red flags because I was like, no, this is the guy. This is the guy to do it. I know it is. But then there was like personal life things going on with him. And those should have been some massive, massive, massive red flags. And I think, he basically just took the money and kind of ran. There's also a number of ones where, back in the day, there was lower levels of due diligence done. It was, you need to get into this deal. It's key, right? You have a day to make a decision. You barely have time to make due diligence. You have to really make a snap call. And back then it was like no deal docs, no legal things put in place. And you would send money to a smart contract basically. And that was your SAFT. Your SAFT was, I sent money here. I'm expecting tokens back at some point. This is early days. This is like 2020, 2021. And, some of those don't pan out either. So I would say things started off on the very risky spectrum, and now things are very buttoned up when you're doing deals.
I understood that when we were talking in Uniswap, you said you got to participate in writing one of the early checks for Eigenlayer. Is that right?
Yeah, our fund did. That's absolutely right.
Man,
Whoa.
I just think it's so cool to get to be part of a conversation. One of our favorite things to do is, we have somebody on the show who's got a great idea, who's building something neat, and you just never know where these protocols are going, but you can kind of get a sense when you hear about a really truly novel piece of tech, or you meet a really gifted founder. And I am just curious if you could talk about Eigenlayer specifically, because I think a lot of people are familiar with it, or it's easy to look up. I'd love to know what it was about that company, that founder, that got your attention or helped you say yes to that kind of
Yeah, so I'll be fully transparent on this one. It was one of the other partners who had landed this deal.
Okay.
And it was in a lot of ways a right time, right place, but he was also a very savvy investor. And so he, when Shriram was initially going around with Eigenlayer, they were looking to build on not ETH, it was like another protocol. And so this investor happened to be in the office that day. Shriram was there, and he pulled him aside and just said, "Hey, man, this is a novel idea. I love where you're going with it. Would love to back you." And I think that early check was put in at around like a 50 mil valuation, and he shoved on it. He thought he really believed in Shriram. He really believed in the idea. And Eigenlayer is an interesting one. I don't think we've seen the full AVS thesis play out just yet, but I think it's gone up and down, and really we just need 2, maybe 3 AVSs to really hit it big for Eigenlayer to work. So I think Shriram is a great example of just a really strong founder, really knows the idea, can really get in the technical weeds. I was at a conference once, and Shriram was standing in the hallways talking to someone, and he was just like, there's like no one around. It's just him, this other guy, they're chatting. I'm going to lunch with some friends. We leave for an hour and a half. We come back. He's still talking to the same guy. Founders like that.
It's a long
that
chat.
they'll give people peace of mind. They'll talk with them over time about ideas. I just love that, right? Because they're not pompous. They really want to make sure that everyone understands the product. Everyone's happy with it. And so I just love that. I couldn't be more bullish on him as a founder.
That's incredible, man. I also want your perspective, something we talk about a lot on this show, and I know you and I have talked about this a little, is that crypto inherently is a venture style investment, in the sense that almost every company here that's asking you to buy their token, meaning you in the general sense, they don't have a product yet. Or if they do, it probably hasn't found a strong market fit. It's the exception, not the rule. And what you can buy is this token that often functions like a sort of stock in a market that's open 24/7. And so there's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of potential for reward. There's a lot of risk. But not everybody playing in this market has venture style tools, in terms of like they're not an entity. They don't have partner investors like it sounds like you do, that they really know and trust. They might be in some kind of community, and they don't have that early access to information, or even like the earliest true market, the opportunity to participate in a seed round, a Series A, in order to make multiples later. But a lot of investments are kind of sold that way, like, hey, no, you're early. Help us get off the ground. So can you talk about that tension and how you might especially advise people to think about that and understand it as the case? Because a lot of people on the other side of this camera are not early stage investors, truly, like you.
Yeah, no, it's a really great point, Evan. And I think like the VC side of the house has gotten kind of a bad rap over the past sort of year or so with the low float, high FTV, VC backed tokens. I think
And
there's
really
like
quickly, for people who don't know, can you just bumper sticker what that means? Low float, high FTV.
Yeah, of course. So basically, if you look at a lot of these projects that come out, they need funding early on to build their idea, to build their concept and other things. And so they generally come to venture capitalists looking for early funding. Maybe they're going to raise $2 million on a $20 million valuation. And so how that works is, the venture capitalists take a lot of the risk early on to say, okay, I think you can get this idea home. I think you can get this concept home. We're going to go ahead and provide you with those funds. we're anticipating to own part of the equity and maybe part of the tokens. So there's common deal models. And so early on, a lot of the common deal models were just a SAFT, which is effectively saying, I'm going to give you money and you're going to give me tokens. The T in SAFT stands for tokens. Then it became a SAFE. So E at the end, equity. So what ended up happening was I'm going to buy equity in this underlying company. The beautiful thing about crypto is when you back a company and you're anticipating tokens, I think we all know, you get to public markets quicker. The tokens can be listed on exchanges, on decentralized exchanges or centralized exchanges. And so that's been one of the really big drivers for venture funds, for really any participant to enter crypto, is these markets are open, they're permissionless, they exist early. So that's kind of the quote unquote exit. If you look at traditional Web 2 venture, your exits are going to be an acquisition or an IPO. Here we have this third part, which is, hey, this token comes to public markets. And to your point, it can be looked at as pseudo equity in a company, right? It's a governance token, but I think the perception has become this is the public market for me to be able to trade this underlying, and we're all going to kind of agree that that token is worth whatever the market says it's worth. So those are kind of the general deal types. And sorry, I forgot your initial question.
Well, the initial question was just that you have access to a different type of deal than most people on the other side of this camera, who might be labeled retail investors. And I would say there's a tremendous amount of misunderstanding on the behalf of those people, or misleading. It's not their fault, to make them feel early. I could just rattle off projects that are like, hey, we've got a pre-sale. Hey, buy our token or buy this miner. It'll get you our token before anybody else has it. To make them feel like they're venture investors, but they don't.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Usually they're a paycheck for someone else. And I appreciate what you said about VCs getting a bad rap, because, that's the kind of project that does it. Go ahead, Alex. What were you going to say?
Just because it's of course possible for a VC to be predatory, which then can become a stereotype that can be hard to shake when you are operating in the same space, regardless of whether or not you're doing things differently. But I mean, that whole thing that you just identified, Evan, that's one of the main allures of this whole thing as an industry, right? It's this idea that, okay, we were just talking in the chat over here about the stock market a little bit, and the idea and Jeebz, I'm curious too, just because I've always wondered about, crypto. We talk a lot about crypto valuation methods being so much higher than standard valuation methods in the stock world, right? 3 to 5 times, earnings, and as opposed to here where it's like maybe there are no earnings and yet you're still worth $500 million. Yeah. Navigating that is interesting, just because in crypto, right, we lowered the barrier to entry to the floor. Whereas in the stock side, your initial buy-in at something might be quite a lot higher than your average everyday person can afford to invest. So you don't get to participate, which keeps valuations kind of at what they are. And it's so interesting how many things, like you said, Evan, just pop up. And that's the way I look at most crypto. It's like, hey, we're a startup company. How would you like to invest in us from the beginning? And that is obviously venture in nature. And it's super attractive to someone who's never had the opportunity before. It also just opens the floodgates to people who are like, I have some semblance of an idea. I'm going to crowdfund the hell out of this thing for no reason. I mean, you mentioned roadmaps, right? Like, what constituted a roadmap? Like a Canva document with at least 6 things on it. Who cares what those 6 things are, as long as hey guys, the big shit's coming.
Right. It's going to cost us 3 buzzwords and $1 million to get 6 PhDs from Yale, outsource a white paper, and then put commercials on TikTok so that everybody everywhere wants to buy our token that's decentralized, whatever, AI,
So I guess my question in that, Jeep, is for you, as you navigate all of that, like from the venture side, to me, that sounds so intimidating. Just like having to try and sift through the unbelievable volume of things that I can only imagine you guys look at on a regular basis, and still trying to pick those out. And I'm curious how that was and how it's shifted now that the nature of the space has changed so much, at least in the last year or so.
Yeah. So lots to unpack here. So
Hope you get your
a couple of let's I'll basically start from the beginning and then kind of work through it, because you're right. I probably see anywhere from 10 to 25 startups a week. And I've had to build tooling to analyze these to determine like, hey, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Is this novel? Is this copy paste?
And for
And
context,
a lot of
sorry,
it becomes
you're
muscle
talking about
memory.
things you have to like 10 to 20 things that then require due diligence and research and digging and all this kind of stuff. Like
100%. Yeah. I'll get a blurb,
Or-
right? And the blurb will be, hey, we're raising 1 on 10. Oh, sorry, William.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask the follow up of the. Let's say you get 10 to 25. You say in a week, just about
Yeah,
10,
sure.
25. How many of those typically? Let's say it's 25 at the week. How many of those do you just kind of say no outright because immediately you see a red flag?
About 10 to 25.
Oh, so it's a pretty light week. All right. Next question.
Yeah, a lot of, I think so. Venture investing in general, to your point, if you have 100 deals that you do, you're expecting five really good ones, maybe 2 home runs. Let's actually dumb this down to 10, right? You're expecting 1 home run. You're expecting maybe 1 to 2 triples, maybe a double in there, singles, and you're expecting 5 to just go to 0, at least go to 0, maybe even more. So it's definitely a game where your winners beat out every single one of your losers, and there's not going to be many of those. So for us, right, Eigenlayer is the great example there, where that ends up usually making up the fund. So it's very much a, I think, as you know, like startups, it's hard. It's a grind. It's hard to get your token up to 5, 10, 15 billion, maybe. So let's start from the beginning, guys. Let's talk about how this process works and what happens. So I think going back to retail and how retail can analyze and get access to these deals, there's now all these platforms like Echo and Legion and places that are trying to democratize access to venture investing. And for the folks here that maybe aren't as familiar, Echo was created by Kobe, who's a known CT sort of influencer, and he was upset with sort of venture investors and where things were. And so how it works is if a project, especially an early stage project, is looking to fund itself, they'll put part of their allocation onto Echo and democratize access to that to anyone. So if you go and sign up to Echo, you now have access to all these deals, and you can go invest $5, $10, $15,000 into these startups. Stage 1, usually. This is generally going to be their first round. So this is one of the avenues for you to be able to quote unquote get in early prior to the token actually launching or prior to the company actually launching. So there are people that are trying to democratize this more. And I think founders are looking at this as a great alternative way for venture funds. Now, I'm actually not seeing it be one or the other. I'm seeing these complement each other a bit more. It's unclear if this is good or bad because it's unclear if the retail participants are mercenary. Are they more or less mercenary than venture folks is the question. When you bring on the right VC, we're there with you. I spend a lot of my week working with our portfolio companies, being a glue guy, connecting them to other people, ensuring that, if they have big problems that they need to solve, I can go sit in on meetings. And if I can help, I try to help. Or if I think someone else that I know can help them, they'll be there for them. So, as a venture investor, generally a lot of folks that I know in the space are like very well versed in a lot of different areas and can step in and be able to problem solve or work with companies. Like my background, I started off in public accounting, I went into management consulting, and then went into product. So I generally can help with some stuff, but know someone maybe that can get them to where they need to be. So I think that's one of the big differences you want to see when it comes to retail versus venture is like, it's unclear how that ends up panning out, but I do think that there are very extractive venture folks out there as well, as much as there is good ones. So it's kind of, we don't know, we're not exactly sure how this one pans out in terms of retail getting access to certain deals, but I'm all about distributing your cap table. I think that these deals should be open and available to people who really want to back this project, who really want to be there for you and all those things. Now, when it comes to like seeing deals and how to make decisions, I'm very data focused. I spent, like I said, most of my career in data and analytics. And one of the beautiful things about crypto is that there is so much data available. It's unreal how much data is available. So on the venture side of the house, there's a few really, really great websites that we can look at.
Okay.
So I'm going to send you a couple here that we could potentially bring up.
Hell yeah. Love it. Got it. Oh, Crypto Rank. We've been there before.
So Crypto Rank, you guys know it, right? So this is going to help you. This page right here is really interesting on funding analytics.
I got
If you
you.
want to look over time for some general trend analysis, if we go down just a little bit, I think one of the beautiful things here is the next chart.
Got it.
This one right here, right? And let's change this to, right, this is number of rounds. So this is showing you by category, what are the areas that are getting funded over time. And if you change it to raised in USD, you can even see
where?
Just on the toggles there, right above
Next to
the
number of
bar
rounds.
charts.
Over.
What?
Left chart. Next. To the
What?
left.
Above the bar graph.
Oh, the bar graph. We're talking about the bar graph.
There we
I'm
go.
sorry, I'm
There
sorry,
we
I'm
go.
sorry. I
Yeah,
didn't know
we
what you
changed to
were
raised in
looking at.
USD. So now we can see like, okay, where are funds actually going over time and who are the people that are getting backed, projects that are getting backed. This is great for trend analysis to see, kind of what's contemporary with VC folks.
Yeah.
So this is another great tool. I love looking at, if you're a retail participant and you're saying, I want to go participate. Hold on 1 second. Let me shut this door.
No, take your time.
As
Wondering
you
if you're
faded
saying,
to the purple and yellow.
Yeah, see ya. This is actually an NFT from one of my favorite artists. But Tokenomists, which used to be Token Unlocks, is a great place to go if you're a retail investor. So you want to look at tokens. And I think low float, high FTV is something that has really been hammered home for a lot of folks. So for example, you can put Eigenlayer in here.
Okay.
And what you want to look for, I think, generally, is what are tokens that most of the supply has already entered the market if you're a retail investor and you're looking at various tokens. So now you're looking at the FDV versus the market cap. Market cap being, here's the current supply of tokens and what they're trading at. FDV just being the price times total supply. And so here, you have to sign in, I think, to get some of the data here.
Yeah,
but
they've upped it.
But there's some really great data here, so you can determine, okay, this token has 90, 100% out in the open. I know that there's little sell pressure potentially from early investors, and I can feel maybe a little bit safer buying this. But the point here is, here are some tools that you can use generally to go see who's in the industry, how have they designed their tokens. If there's new token models that come out, you can use this as a benchmark to determine, okay, how much is going to the team? How much is going to the public? What are the successful models that have worked in the past versus what exists today? So point here is there are just some really incredible data tools that you can go use to explore protocols. Artemis is another great one.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys use that one as well. I can
Artemis
send you
is
the link
familiar
here.
to me, but I
haven't used it. No.
Let me send you this one is incredible. I heard you guys talking about stable coins earlier, and I'd love to hit that because we actually invested a little bit in that space, and I'm very interested to see where that goes. Here, let me send you this one.
Is Artemis.xyz?
That's the one. Yep, app.artemis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Metrics that matter for digital finance all in one place.
Obviously, DeFi Llama is great. I like Artemis
We
and
love
DeFi
DeFi Llama
Llama.
too, yeah.
I use all these tools. But what you can see here is if you just do launch up on the top right. Yeah, this
Got it.
terminal. Yeah.
Take a look, see where it takes us. Beautiful.
Cool. So they have all these fees, flow data. You can see on the left side, you have sectors.
Yep.
So I love coming to places like this to see, okay, what are the big dApps and how much trading volume or usage are they getting, right? This is perps, bridges, DEX, lending, the whole nine. You're going to see this for all your major categories. This is a great tool to come and look and say, okay, what are people using in this space? What has found product market fit? Now, that's going to show you what has product market fit today. But when you're an investor, you kind of want to determine what's going to have product market fit 6 months from now,
Yeah.
a year from now. And that's where you kind of get into the the sausage making process here. But these are some of the tools I love to use just to see kind of what people are up to, what they're doing. Application activity on the left there is great. And so, yeah, this is kind of part of the process.
And for people who are like, wait, what website? Don't fret, don't sweat. We're going to put this in the description below if you're watching it on YouTube. We're going to put it in the Rise Up Discord server, and we will make sure, if you ask, to let you know what all these different resources were. The Discord server is totally free to join. It's discord.gg/riseup. It's the place the show lives 24/7. And if you're just watching us for the first time or you haven't joined yet, we encourage you to check it out. There's a tutorial step-by-step if you've never joined a Discord before at the links in all of our bios, theriseuppmorningshow.com. Super easy to find, but don't hesitate to ask. Gerard, I know you said you wanted to touch on stablecoins, but you actually kind of teed us up for a question we've been talking about a lot this week that I'd like to ask you first, which is what makes a good token? For context, yesterday we were having a conversation where we answered somebody's question about Aave. They said, Aave seems like a really strong DeFi protocol. Everybody uses it. Everybody talks about it. It's been here for a long time, but their governance token doesn't seem like a great investment. Doesn't seem like it's going to do 100x for me or something like that. And we talked a little about, the many use cases of a token. My thesis is that a token has to have the right purpose at the right time for the right person to use it, whether that's to give velocity to liquidity, whether that's to give somebody the right of governance, whether it's to attach a permanent, easily verifiable thing to a piece of art. So can you talk about what you think makes a good token?
That is a great question. So a lot of tokens come in the form of governance, right? That's kind of been the general model that we've seen. But it's difficult because if you look at data around governance in this space, participation in governance is very low. So I think that shows me people don't really want to govern, or they don't have time to govern. But when projects really first launched tokens, that's what they had to do. They had to say, hey, this is a decentralized protocol. We're going to launch this token, and we're going to give people the ability to govern this protocol via voting with the tokens. So that's been the model for a long time. And we really haven't evolved too far past that. So when you ask, what does a good token mean? I think it's what is a good token going to look like going forward? And I think part of that is going to be revenue sharing for really great protocols. At the end of the day, these protocols are businesses. And I think people are using them as speculative means on the future revenues potentially of these companies, or the future potential of some of these companies. And so to me, I think what I'm looking for a number of these, and I own, this obviously isn't financial advice, but I own certain governance tokens in some of these large protocols. I'm anticipating and kind of hoping that they're going to, quote unquote, turn the fee switch on and then pass that revenue onto these tokens. Because I'll be honest, I don't want to govern either.
No. I don't think most of the
I'm
people
just not looking to govern anything.
Most of the people who bought World Liberty Finance tokens weren't doing it because they're like, wow, I can't wait to get up and vote every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, there's experimental ways to govern DAOs that I think are going to be really big narratives this year. Stuff like, futarchy, for example. And what MetaDAO is doing is really interesting. And I'm happy to kind of explain that really briefly, but I think this is one of the really interesting. So if you go to metadao.fi, full disclosure, I own some MetaDAO and the Meta token, and primarily because I think it's a very innovative and creative solution. But the best way to think about futarchy is it's similar to prediction markets. So a prediction market there is a market that is created to bet on the outcome of an event. It might be who's going to win March Madness, who's going to be the next president, whatever it may be. So you're gambling on that. It's sort of a truth machine. Futarchy is a concept created by Robin Hanson, I think in 2000. And the whole idea is that, if you believe in the efficient market hypothesis, that markets can make better decisions than voting. And so if you have an idea, and if we can get to the dashboard, it's probably the best way to sort of take a look. I don't know if we have to you can do trade decisions, live markets up on the top. But there's a number of large protocols on Solana that have joined this. And the whole idea is the market is the decision. So should MetaDAO hire Robert Hansen as an advisor? If you click on that, you'll see there's an entire market that was created just around this decision. And people, did $52,000 in volume. There's 208 trades, and yes won, meaning the yes market was higher than the no market. So this ends up moving forward. So the whole idea is this could increase DAO participation. This could become a new method for DAO governance. It's very experimental at this point in time. So I would say it's something definitely to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's I always wonder about this since I've seen the emergence of, like Polymarket getting big, is the question of like, are we voting or are we voting on what other people are voting for? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of wisdom for a crowd, but I'm not sure I've wrapped my tongue around the thought yet, but you see what I'm getting at? I'm curious to see if these markets show us that we are predicting what we think other people want, or if we are truly participating in something like a vote.
Yeah. The interesting thing here, so you mentioned Drift before. Drift is using MetaDAO. Jito is one of the protocols here. And I think when you have, I think right now, Futarchy is in a little bit of a chicken and egg problem. And that's because it's experimental. So they don't want to bring really big decisions to these markets. But you're not going to have high participation unless you have executive level or board level decisions being made here. So we're seeing experimentation in this. Will it pan out? It's still hard to say. Maybe people don't even want to gamble on decisions, let alone participate in them.
Yeah, I get you.
But I love the experimentation.
Yeah. Gerard, do you have a hard stop, or can we keep you for just 5 or 10 more minutes? Is that okay?
Oh, we can stay for 5 or 10 more minutes. This is fun.
Okay, good deal. Because we do have a couple. We want to hear your take on stablecoins. I think our audience would like to know what you're thinking about the market generally, maybe what you're excited for, and then we can go around and do a little bit of a final thought. You can tell people where to touch base with you. What do you got, Alex?
There have been a few questions about your personal red flags, things that set you off either immediately or things that you uncover, during your due diligence periods that you're just like, okay, yeah, hard no.
Founder. I think it's become one of the biggest things. Who's this founder? Can they actually take this idea and bring it forth? Do they have the right team behind them? What's their past experience? I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. Do they have the grit to be able to drive this home during tough times? Are they a wartime leader? I think these are all the questions that I really try and dive into. The idea, I think sometimes you just see an idea and you're like, oh yeah, that's amazing. But are you the right person to make this into a massive company?
How do you qualify
that is
for that?
For sure the biggest one. What was that?
How do you qualify for that?
Like, how do I determine if they're the right founder?
Sure, like you might look at their past experience, but let's say somebody's fairly fresh, young founder, understands the idea. What are the kind of things you look for as indicators that this person has grit or tenacity or toughness or all those things?
That is an intangible metric, Evan. I think it is spending time with them.
Well, I have
It's
this
talking to
indicator that
them.
I've
yeah.
It's on my watch right here, yeah.
Yeah. All the metrics on my computer are just going off.
Sure, but
A
you
lot
like to
of it
sit
is
down with
just-
them face to face, or a person.
If I
you
can, that's
or...
incredible. Absolutely. Like if you can get face to face, that is rare though. I'll say this: like you have to kind of be in the due diligence process and happen to be at a conference at the same time and be able to do that. A lot of it is just hopping into meetings with them, asking them a bunch of questions, trying to get to know them on a little bit more of a personal level. And then a lot of times, if you can meet them in person, that's it. But it's trying to see like, what have you done in the past? How have you been resilient in the past? What are the things that you've done where you've overcame any type of tough situations? Because at the end of the day, like, this stuff is not easy. And a lot of people, I think, come into this thinking, hey, I can just start a company, make 10 million bucks and decentralize it and I'm out. And I think it just takes so much more than that, especially when things go bad or people start selling your token. Like, and the price goes down and you're just demotivated. That we've seen that happen.
just getting beat up by the public. Yeah.
Well, how how we're still surprised by that. Like, you know, how many TGEs do we need to see followed by an aggressive dump and then zero interest do we need to see before people finally figure out like maybe a different methodology would be worth experimenting with? Just given that.
Yeah, no, Alex, you're spot on. Yeah, airdrops I think have become one of the sort of worst things in the space. Like, let's reward every ancillary community that's going to dump our token. Like that is one of the worst things I've seen. I think also you should, like, I'm of the belief that blanket airdrops are a net negative for your token and for the space, because a lot of times when people get free money,
you're good.
You're
back
good.
here.
You're good.
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
A lot of times they get free money.
you know, when people get free money, you know, they take the free money.
Yeah, exactly.
For, you know, just is what it is. So I would love to see increased airdrop mechanics this year where there's a bit of give and take.
Are you familiar with, because the first one that I've seen in a while, and again, disclosures, I don't own anything here. I'm not invested in any way, shape, or form to any of this, but they are friends of mine, is the game Wildcard.
I haven't seen that. Tell me about it.
Okay, so I'll toss up the
throw me a screen
here.
share.
Yep, I got you. So the founder, as we're talking about founders, semi-notable in the world of gaming, Paul Bettner and Katie Bettner are behind this one. So they Paul Bettner famously built Words with Friends, Age of Empires, a couple other Halo Wars, just a
couple other small hits.
Dabbled around, and then they've had an NFT, the Wild Pass, for a very long time, and they've been working on this game for pretty good chunk of time. So firmly in the Web3 kind of gaming space, but recently just released the Wild paper, including a huge section on tokenomics and token plans and all that sort of stuff. And I thought it was interesting because several of the basic mechanics have changed, and I'm just like, finally something a little bit different. So one thing that was really interesting was that the airdrop, most of it was like pre-announced who was going to qualify and how, and it hadn't started yet. And then you were invited to enter the ecosystem, play the game, participate in the tournaments. They're dropping a streaming platform called Thousands at the same time. And it was just, here's everything that you need to know to participate in this as much as you would like to. And this is how much of the token is going to go to these people. And none of it started yet. Get ready. Like, it starts in a week. And
that's incredible.
It was super interesting. And so it's too fresh to tell exactly like how this is going to go yet. But it was the first one where I was like, finally, and I texted Katie the same thing. I was like, it was so refreshing to just read something different for a change, because we just keep doing the same shit over and over again, expecting different results, which I believe some smart guy once defined as insanity.
Dude, this is really cool to see. You know, one of the things I would love to see some founders do a bit more is video game and board game designers have thought about this problem for a long time. What are emissions and what are sinks? And so a couple of years ago, like right when I was getting into venture, I was advising some projects, and I just sent this tool. I would use this sometimes. It's called Machinations. And so super cool tool where you can actually build out your whole token economy and have it play out in different ways. And I would love to see more folks experiment with this, actually build it out and try and optimize. Hey, here's our sinks, here's our emissions. So here's our emissions, here's our sinks, here's everything that's going on in between. And this is a great way to go ahead and figure out, okay, how is this potentially going to play out over time? But on top of that, cool. Airdrop mechanics, you know, hopefully can change. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I really like this. I would love to play with this as a teaching tool, because I feel like one of the things that I have thought for a long time that I'm surprised more people don't talk about or try to illustrate is tokens they're pretty much free in terms of creating them, sharing them with people. They're very low cost, easy to distribute. I don't understand why more people don't just do multiple tokens. Like, why are you asking one token to be your reward point, your loyalty program, your fungible thing, your identity in our ecosystem? And it's so much burden for one tool. And in a world where tokens are cheap or free, like, you could just design a perfect token for each thing you want to do. I wouldn't put all of my ideas in one book. I'd write a novel, then I'd do a comic book, then I'd write a book of recipes, and then I'd have sticky notes for just errant ideas. You know what I mean? Like, why don't we do that more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of room for more experimentation on the token side. And I think what people fail to realize is they oftentimes want to get their token to market really fast. Like, hey, what can we do to get this out there?
Yeah.
And they fail to realize you get one really good shot to get your token out to market. Because if the token dies, it's tough to come back. It's tough to come back.
ICP, we're looking at you. You know?
They have enough funding to stay around for forever, but
yeah, but no one is ever going to look at that chart and say, "Can't wait to buy."
Can't wait to buy that. Yeah,
it's tough.
EOS is still alive.
Oh,
EOS
I don't
is still
know.
alive,
EOS is still alive. Jazzy.
They have so much money; it's unreal. They have so
Yeah,
much Bitcoin.
Dude, when you talk about things that would be just great to put on a t-shirt and wear to a crypto conference, just one that says EOS is still a thing.
Yeah.
would be a good-
Adding it to the file with USDC to $2. You mentioned, Jeebz, you wanted to talk a little about stablecoins, and we would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Alex, I was listening to what you were saying earlier, which is with stablecoin bills, we are going to see way more stablecoins. I think we're going to see upwards of 100 stablecoins this year. And we have protocols who, we invested in one stablecoin this year, and their strategy is bringing factored insurance strategies that yield on chain. It's a pretty consistent, like 7 to 9% yield.
Yeah.
So I think the whole theory is, as you see treasuries go down, the base yield, which I consider, the base standard yield rate to be what is Aave paying you on stables. I think, any spread you can get on that is going to become more attractive to people. So you're going to see all these off-chain strategies, factoring, private credit, bundles, the whole nine, turn into stable coins this year. It could be even on-chain hedge fund strategies, stuff similar to Athena starting to come on chain. And so, yeah, I'm predicting 100 or more stable coins this year alone. And what makes a good stable coin at the end of the day? We talked about USDC prior, and their IPO. So I play in the private markets a bit, selling and looking at positions. And I've seen Circle go on the private markets from about 3 billion up to, I saw bids at 5.5 recently. I imagine that'll come down a bit now that they're announcing, they're going to come out the gate at 4 to 5. We saw their financials. There's some questionable stuff in there. They pay a lot for distribution, but it's a strong company. But you have to consider, right? Rates come down by 100 bips. Their business model just got destroyed by 25%. Their revenue goes down 25% over, instantly there. It'll take time for us to get there, but it's so dependent on that. And also, there's no yield being passed on to users. And so you guys might have seen this, but Vlad from Robinhood has been doing the rounds over the past week. He did Milk Road, he did Bankless, and he's really bullish on crypto in general. I think he gets it, but I'd anticipate we see a Robinhood stable coin this year that really comes and competes with Circle, competes with Tether. Yeah, I think this is going to be the strongest competitor because you're going to see so much fragmentation in the stablecoin market here soon. How are you going to know what to use if you're retail and you come into this space? You're going to gravitate toward the big ones. You're going to go use. I think most people in the U.S. use Circle. Like when I want stables from someone, I don't want Tether. I want USDC. There's something that I have there where I believe more in USDC. And if you look at the data on it, there's 3 times the amount of Tether than there is USDC. But there's 3 times the amount of movement of USDC than there is of Tether, meaning it's more, Tether might be used for trading pairs. It might be used for collateral, but USDC is actually used, meaning people, I think, trust it more as a stable coin.
I think that's an interesting piece of, as you talk about, the availability of different yields for different stable coins. I mean, Circle is just prolific right now in terms of getting integrated with all of these different platforms. So I talk a lot about, the gap that you're trying to make up just to break even with your money, being combating real inflation and then currency debasement of your fiat, whatever it is, in this case, dollar.
clarify what you mean? Because we have a really good comment. Is trading not usage? You qualify a trading pair versus movement. Can you explain a little more?
That is a great question. Trading would, I think, be considered movement because it's technically going from one party to another party. This is based on Artemis's dashboard, and this does cover movement. So this is, flows. So Tether flows versus USDC flows.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, of course.
And in terms of the pie, how big it is, we talked earlier about, will banks have their own stable coins, that kind of thing. Do you think it's the kind of thing everybody's going to dip their toe into, or that somebody like Robinhood, who's well positioned, is going to just come in, be like an incumbent? RLUSD is a subject of much speculation on social media right now. What's your kind of picture about how it might evolve? You said you predict a lot more, but where's it going after people launch a lot of stable coins? Somebody going to win?
That's a great question, Evan. And that's one of the ones I don't have a great answer to that.
You don't have an 8-ball, man? My 8-ball says buy Bitcoin. Simple.
You don't have an 8-ball?
To be honest, it's going to be one of those things where everyone wants to get into this game because I think it's looked at as a low risk free money play. Yeah. So I do anticipate major financial institutions to come in, issue their own stable coin. The issue is that spread. We talk about USDC's business model. It's all dependent on Fed funds rate, right? On treasury rates. Yep. And if consumers are going to start to demand, I want that yield, right? You're effectively taking that yield from me. When you think of time value of money, I'm losing money holding USDC every day. I want that yield to at least come back to me. Their profit starts to shrink even more. And so I think you're going to see these yield bearing competitors really start to take hold. And if we go to actually, do you want to look at some stable data?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Sure.
Let's pop back to Artemis real quick.
That's such an interesting point, though. Like, the idea of holding something and losing money while doing it. Like you keep cash dollars in a checking account, you're hemorrhaging money on a yearly basis. You're just bleeding buying power the entire time.
100%.
And so you can close that gap a little bit by stepping up to holding USDC on Coinbase, for example, covers it by a few more percent. But if the gap you're trying to make up is like 25% per year when you combine debasement and real inflation, you're just dropping the bucket kind of a thing. And that's where it gets sketchy and interesting as you try to combine these different yields into yield then based off other tokens, non-stable, and where you can, as we were talking with David last night, loop yield from like a USDC yield farm, lend it out there, borrow somewhere else at a reduced rate on this protocol, loop that back into some, and all of a sudden you're just creating this like intricate house of cards, composing this like Franken yield from like 18 different places. And it's
giving you 50%.
It's wild.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. So so many thoughts on that. And you're right. Time value of money. If your money is not making money and there's free money to be made there, the government's willing to say, I'll pay you whatever it is, like 4%, 4.5%. And if your bank isn't giving you that, there are places that will, whether it's Robinhood, whether it's Wealthfront, whether it's Betterment, these neobanks, they'll pass that yield to you. These places are FDIC insured. They will, at minimum, be able to do this for you. So could not recommend that more. Evan, I'm gonna walk you through here. Up on the top ribbon, there's the third one that says stablecoins.
Yep. Got it.
Okay, let's scroll down just a bit. So you can see here, right? We're going to talk through a little bit of this. Actually, these two charts right here are exactly what we want to see. Stable coins are up and to the right. This is why everyone says, how do I get long stable coins? This is why we're putting out 101x leverages on USDC. I'm just kidding. No one actually do that. But on the right side, you can see here, this is the data I pointed out before. So we are looking at stable coins on the right, and this shows us the supply. So this is the bar chart that's going horizontally, right? And so if you click on where it says supply, you can see here, there's way more USDT than USDC. But if you click on transfer volume, and that little I right there will give us the definition of this.
Yes.
Right?
Transfer volume of stablecoin, total volume stablecoin transfers in USD.
Exactly. And here we go. We have USDC significantly punches above its weight. So This does tell me that USDC is very trusted. People like to use it a bit more when it comes to transfer volume.
That's like a
And
2 to
like I
1.
said, they're just killing
And
it
then
with the integrations. They're leaving Tether in the dust in terms of getting easy to access options with more native versions of USDC versus having to be constantly wrapping, unwrapping, and rewrapping your Tether to put it in different places, which is just a terrible user experience.
100%. Yeah. There's something trusted about USDC, and trust is so important in the space.
And
Very
I'm
much
going
so.
from 5-year time frame. You can see it was a much closer race, but still, when you zoom in a little bit and look at just the last, since the start of the year, it's pretty impressively stark. That's a strong difference.
Yeah.
Man,
So-
Artemis, I had heard of it,
yeah.
but I had never used it before. So this is a fantastic tool.
Amazing tool. Even the flows tool on there is great. That'll show you where funds are, what chains are they leaving and where are they going to. So that can give you an idea of where interest in people's layer 1 or layer 2 desires are, which is kind of cool.
Man. Okay, we're gonna have to play with this, and we certainly
We're gonna
will
have
show it
so
again
many
on the show.
websites in the description. This is all great. Thanks for sharing.
The description's going to be very long today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we had
no,
Artemis up before.
Yeah.
Jeeves,
I have another one I want to bring up that I'm going
Oh,
to
you
end
do?
on too.
Okay, good. Let's end on this because I know you said you only had a couple more minutes. So give me one more, and then we'll call it.
RWA.xyz.
Oh, I like it.
So, Alex, you asked earlier, what am I interested in right now? What are the areas that I've grown interest in? It is RWAs and DPIN are the two sectors that I've moved toward. So when we talk about the evolution of investing, a lot of what I'm looking at now is what are the real things that are coming from entrepreneurs or on chain, and what are people looking to do with those? And I run a bunch of DPIN projects at my house. I find DPIN just really fascinating. It's an interesting business model. There's only been a couple really that have panned out, but I think it's just like fun to tinker with this stuff. The other one is RWAs. So like, what are people bringing on chain? And so if we launch this dashboard, I can show you some of the stuff here.
Let's do it.
But I have a lot of thoughts about RWAs in general and what I've seen. So
Me too.
this is not an all-encompassing dashboard. I'll say that much. They're a little bit behind the puck here. But on the left, you can see here's the different asset classes, everything from stables to treasuries, bonds, credit. Private credit right now is probably the hottest sector. So I came back from the Digital Asset Summit in New York, which is the big buttoned up institutional conference. And private credit was what everyone was talking about. And when you look here, right, Figure, which is this big purple one, they're bringing home equity line of credits on chain. So this is the SoFi founder realizing that this is a great moment. You can see this tradable one also comes on chain. And so when we talk about what private credit is, it's, extending credit to companies in a private manner. This is stuff that generally KKRs and large financial institutions are able to extend out, and retail hasn't had access to this. And so what people are realizing is a couple of things. One is that you can use crypto when it comes to really RWAs. There's 3 buckets I think of it as. It's capital formation. It's how do we get all this money to do the deal and then give it to the deal. Then there's the underlying deal itself.
Okay.
And then there's how do we distribute the money that's made back to the people who gave us those initial funds.
Sure.
And so the tail ends of it have a lot of benefits with smart contracts and stable coins, because you can effectively say, hey, we want to deposit your funds in this smart contract. It's going to come into this smart contract, be held for a certain period of time, probably get some yield, right? It'll be used in some way to gain some yield on it. And then it'll then be distributed to create the actual financial product itself. There's some people then that are trying to actually tokenize the specific financial instrument. One could be legal receivables. It could be, tradable.xyz. If we scroll down a bit, they have some examples of these that they put there. So that click that little arrow next to it.
Yeah.
And if we scroll down, right, they want to tokenize these financial strategies. They offer 10 to 15%. There's a few listed. If you go down here, this is the hottest area right now in crypto, right? They're pretty risky. These deals are really wild, but you can see they're closing $100 million tranches, $115 million tranches for these deals. And so there's something here. And what I think is going to happen is a few things. One, I think that the whole RWA sector is in its Web 1.0 moment, meaning, right now, when the internet first started, we took books and magazines and we put them just on the internet.
Yeah, my
and
recipe, it's
efficiencies
a
were
web
gained.
page.
Yeah, it's a web page, but I no longer had to go to the bookstore. I no longer had to go buy this magazine. I can just access it at home. Efficiencies gained. RWAs, I think, are in that moment right now where we're taking this stuff that exists off chain and we're saying, hey, let's bring it on chain. And we can use stable coins to create some efficiencies with how we get capital and distribute capital. I think the Web 2.0 moment for RWAs is when you can tokenize the strategy and it can be used in DeFi. I can lever this up. I can do all sorts of things with this specific financial instrument and be able to use money Legos to boost my yield, to get collateral, to do other stuff with it. So that is what I'm sort of looking for and excited about. And I think that Web 2.0 moment for RWAs will happen this year.
Man, that's killer.
So this is what I'm geeked out about.
Yeah. And
Appreciate
so
the alpha.
even while the market is down, you're feeling pretty optimistic about the future of crypto.
The institutions have never been more excited to be participating in crypto. Chris from Coin Fund yesterday was saying that 2 large institutions hit him up and want to be involved. At DAS, there was a lot of excitement from institutions realizing, hey, we can gain a ton of efficiencies using these rails at a minimum. But then it's that 2.0 moment. How do we use DeFi to start to lever up and do things with our positions?
Mm-hmm.
Man, fantastic. When it comes to fruition, we want to have you back, and we'd like to have you back in the interim to talk about it, but it's about that time. You've been very gracious. We got to ride our dogs and our ponies off into the sunset, so I would love for you, if you're watching, to leave a last-minute question, suggestion, good joke, word of wisdom, and then we'll go around and do a round of final thoughts before we head on out for the weekend. Jeebz is our guest. Let people know where they can find you and whether or not you have a final thought or an ask for our audience.
0xGeebz on Twitter. My final thought is, believe in something. Spend your time researching, believe in something, and really do due diligence on this stuff. There's so much data available for you to be able to make really informed decisions in this space. And so, spend some time exploring all these resources we talked about today.
Beautiful. And
Appreciate it.
And I would say, if you're not taking note of these resources, you are missing a great opportunity. We're going to have them in the show notes. Alex, final thought.
I'm tempted to ask a question.
Oh, Gerard, you don't know Alex for this, but every time we have a final thought, Alex yields it to ask somebody just one more question. So go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Wait, I have to go. So
okay, then you give a final
thought. Let me give a quick final thought. Everybody just keep, from financial market standpoint, keep your eyes open for reciprocal tariffs coming from specifically the UK, China, Korea, and Japan. Keep your eyes on that coming before the end of this week, either today or tomorrow. All right, I gotta go. I'll see you guys. Jeebz, nice chatting with you, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, William.
All the
Pleasure.
websites in the alpha, man. Talk to you later.
Okay, Alex, hit us
All
quick.
right. So I have a genuine final thought for the comment that just came in saying, I'm overwhelmed. You're not alone by any stretch. This is, Jeebz, how much studying would you say, like hours wise, if you try in vain to quantify it, would you say you have into all of this to get to where you are? Exactly. If you could see his face, it was just a deep,
he said,
a big inhale and a deep sigh, a lot. I mean, we're talking just so much. The good news is that you don't have to go this hard to understand where you fit into the picture. That's kind of the purpose of this entire show, is trying to break down an incredibly complex topic into chunks, including, first and foremost, where do we all fit into this equation? That's my number one piece of advice is, you're allowed to be here. You're in the right place. Decentralizing pieces of your life is the answer to escaping predatory practices from people and entities and corporations just trying desperately to extract and squeeze every penny that they can out of you. We've been siloed our whole lives to believe that that's the only way, and it's not. And there's a lot of money and power dedicated to making sure you figure that out. So when large companies are paying to keep you from spending time with something, that's probably worth looking at, in my humble opinion. My question, though, my final question is, every morning when I wake up, I have the same routine of a couple things that I've checked, and I'm hazarding a guess that you've gone through most of your quick stops for, like early first day information. Do you have like a go-to, especially since morning routines are just so freaking viral right now? So after you've washed your face with a bottled water and rubbed a banana peel across your nose, and taken a 4-minute dive into a pool at 4 a.m., do you have like a go-to, a couple bookmarks that are always open that you always check first and foremost?
Yeah, I do actually. That's a great question. So
That's a great question.
Catching up on the day's news, there's a lot of ways to do it. So I subscribe to a few newsletters. One of them is Tyler Did It, who does the Crypto Morning Minute. Does a great job covering macro, covering crypto, and he sends out a daily newsletter, but then also does it in a tweet. I also do a Tuesday morning show with them every week called Underexposed. Some weeks we change the name to Overexposed. It'll be on Twitter and YouTube also. That's part of the Dastain Rug Radio umbrella of shows. And the other one that I've used a lot more lately, so I subscribe to Masari for their research, but they also have a great news recap tool. But the other one that I use, I love this news site. You guys might love it too. This is called Deep News. This was founded by a guy who he initially created an algorithm that would price CryptoPunks, and it still exists. It's called Deep NFT Value. This Deep News website is so freaking good. And I go here and they have a crypto tab, and you can go there, and he uses AI to aggregate a bunch of articles on a topic and then gives you a clear, concise, here's what it is. And it's great. So that's part of my morning routine.
It's fantastic.
Love it.
I am going to have to go back through this episode and be really diligent about links. I might send you a text and say, hey, what was that? So look for that. And everybody here, expect the episode to be dusted up with all the links sometime later today, available on podcasting platforms, YouTube, wherever you are, whenever you listen. We would love for you to share this with your friends, to go follow Jeebz at 0xGeebz on X, and then tune into Underexposed and let them know you came from the Rise Up Morning Show. Gerard, man, thank you so much for making time to hang out with us today, to share your knowledge, and we hope you'll come back again and do it soon, brother.
It's been a pleasure. I'd love to come on anytime you guys would like, even just venture check-ins every once in a while. It'd be my pleasure.
I think we're going to have to add you to the rotation.
Yeah, we should. That should be a segment for sure. As often as we can steal you just for a little pulse check, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Would love that, guys. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. We'll catch you next time, and we will catch you next time. Thank you all for being the best part of what we do. Be sure to check out the links at theriseupmorningshow.com, and don't forget to jump in the Discord server. If you got a question we didn't get to, that is where the show lives 24/7, where your comments will never, ever fade away.
I am a big fan of
And we would love to see you there. That's the only thing missing is you. So, my friends, we'll be back same time, same place, Monday, 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. Until then, everybody, stay safe. Be well.